All right, so picture this. It's 1973, right? The Supreme Court just made this huge decision with Roe v. Wade legalizing abortion across the whole country.
Seems like that'd be the end of it, huh? Case closed?
Yeah, you'd think so, right?
Mm-mm.
But that's actually when things really got going. It sparked this whole movement.
A movement that, let me tell you, would end up changing the entire landscape of American politics for decades.
Yeah.
I mean, decades.
No kidding. And that's what we're diving into today.
The anti-abortion movement.
This incredible story of, well, everything grassroots organizing, serious strategic moves, and ultimately how Roe v. Wade got overturned.
What always gets me is how this movement, driven by, unshakable belief, took what was, kind of a quiet Catholic issue and turned it into this political powerhouse.
Yeah, capable of swaying voters and shaping policies. It's pretty amazing.
Okay.
We've got a ton of stuff here. Firsthand accounts, court documents, historical analyses, all painting this really intricate picture.
It's a wild ride.
So before Roe, was opposition to abortion really just a Catholic thing?
For the most part, yeah. The Catholic Church had always condemned abortion, but it wasn't this widespread political issue.
And it wasn't something the average American was really thinking about.
Right, exactly.
And then along come Dr. John and Barbara Wilkie,
Devout Catholics.
who published this handbook on abortion in 71.
2 years before Roe, think about that.
Seems like they were already laying the groundwork.
Oh, absolutely. Their handbook was a total game changer. They used these graphic images of fetuses and really strong language, calling abortion murder.
Wow.
And that actually became like the blueprint for the movement going forward. It shaped their messaging and tactics for years to come.
So they were already framing the narrative in a powerful way, even before Roe.
Exactly. And then when Roe v. Wade happened and abortion was legalized nationwide, it actually had this opposite effect. It energized the movement even more.
Really?
It gave them a common enemy, and pushed them towards a strategic alliance.
The Republican Party.
Bingo. You got to remember, this was a time of crazy social change. School desegregation, the rise of the religious right figures like Jerry Falwell were electrifying conservative voters. Evangelicals joined the anti-abortion cause.
Bringing a lot of political weight with them, I imagine.
Huge weight, and making it a core part of the Republican platform. So you have this fusion of religious fervor and political strategy. It's fascinating.
Totally. So their tactics evolved beyond just religious arguments at that point.
Oh, yeah. They started emphasizing this idea that women themselves were victims of abortion, highlighting regret and the potential for trauma.
It was a way to broaden their message, right?
Exactly. Appeal to folks who might not be swayed by religious arguments.
Made it more about the woman.
Precisely. They even introduced this concept of post-abortion syndrome.
I've heard of that.
Suggesting there's this lasting psychological damage from the procedure.
Even though there wasn't really scientific evidence to back it up.
Nope. But it was a way to create doubt, make people uneasy.
Plant that seed.
Exactly. And they went beyond just language. Think about The Silent Scream.
Oh, that movie from the 80s.
Yeah, used ultrasound imagery to show a fetus supposedly reacting in pain during an abortion.
It's a powerful title, The Silent Scream. Really designed to get a reaction out of people.
Oh, yeah. And using imagery like that, it was groundbreaking at the time. This film was everywhere, even at the White House.
Seriously.
President Reagan loved it, really solidified the issue's place in the national conversation.
So they went from a relatively small movement to influencing the President of the United States.
And then things took kind of a dark turn. The 80s also saw an escalation of tactics. Some groups moved beyond peaceful protest.
Yeah, this is where we see the targeting of abortion providers, the threats, the violence,
Mhm.
even murders. Really scary stuff.
Absolutely. While the mainstream anti-abortion movement condemned these violent acts, it definitely cast a shadow over everything, created this atmosphere of fear and tension.
So even though the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act was passed in 94, to protect clinics and providers, the threat of violence was still there.
Yeah.
Did that deter the movement at all?
Not even a little. They were playing the long game. Shifted their focus to a more legal approach, trying to chip away at Roe v. Wade little by little.
This is where Planned Parenthood v. Casey comes in, right?
Yeah, 1992, almost 20 years after Roe.
A long time.
Casey was huge. The court upheld Roe, but introduced this undue burden standard for abortion restrictions.
Undue burden.
It seemed like a small thing, but it opened the door for all these state-level regulations.
So instead of attacking Roe head-on, they found a way to chip away at abortion access indirectly.
Smart, right. And people like Marjorie Dannenfelser of the Susan B. Anthony list, they were masters at using this, made opposition to abortion like a test for Republican candidates,
A litmus test.
and focused hard on getting conservative judges appointed.
A long game strategy.
Right.
That ultimately paved the way for Roe to be overturned. Did they have any, major setbacks during this time?
Well, the violence against providers, that was a PR nightmare for them. But they were determined, kept the pressure on, waiting for the right moment.
And that moment came with Trump's election, right?
When he appointed 3 conservative justices to the Supreme Court.
Tipping the scales and setting the stage for Roe v. Wade to be overturned in 2022.
50 years. A long time coming.
It's wild to think about, 5 decades of work,
Yeah.
all leading up to Roe v. Wade being overturned. What happened next? Did the movement just pack up and go home?
Oh, not even close. Overturning Roe was huge, a massive win, but it also kind of created this whole new battleground.
How so?
Well, the fight shifted to the states. Each state could now make its own laws about abortion.
So instead of this one big national debate, it became 50 different ones.
You got it.
Wow.
And we saw that play out almost immediately after the Dobbs decision.
Yeah, I remember. It was like this shockwave.
States were scrambling, trying to figure out what to do, passing laws based on their views on abortion.
Lots of dramatic headlines. Some states were celebrating, others were ready to fight back, and women were facing completely different realities depending on where they lived. It's pretty intense.
Absolutely. States like Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, they didn't waste any time. Passed some of the most restrictive abortion laws in the country. And it wasn't just about banning abortion.
What do you mean?
Well, they had these new criminal penalties for providers and all these legal hurdles for patients. It was a lot.
It felt like a competition to see who could restrict access the most. I remember some laws even let regular people sue anyone who helped a woman get an abortion.
That's right. Those were especially scary. It was like pitting neighbors against each other, creating this atmosphere of fear.
Definitely. And then you had states on the other side, like California, New York, Illinois, doubling down on abortion rights. They became safe havens for women who had to travel from states with bans.
It was this stark contrast, this patchwork of laws. Some states shutting down access completely, others actively trying to expand it. And for women who needed care, it meant figuring out this confusing legalness, traveling long distances, facing financial burdens. It was a lot to deal with.
And the impact on healthcare providers in those states with bans, it must have been devastating.
It was. Imagine being a doctor, dedicating your life to women's health, and suddenly you could go to jail for providing basic care. Lots of providers left those states, afraid of being prosecuted or just unable to do their jobs under such strict rules.
A healthcare crisis on top of everything else. And we know that restrictions on abortion hit low-income women, women of color, and women in rural communities the hardest. The ones who already have trouble accessing healthcare in the first place.
Exactly. Overturning Roe just made those existing inequalities worse, made it even tougher for vulnerable women to get the care they needed.
So the anti-abortion movement achieved this goal they'd been working towards for decades, but it didn't actually end the debate, did it?
Nope, it just shifted the battle lines.
And sparked even more activism on both sides. We saw huge protests, legal challenges to all those new state laws, and a surge in political organizing around abortion rights.
Definitely. It feels like the stakes are higher now than ever, and the emotions are even more raw.
So what does all this mean for the future of abortion access in America? Any chance of finding some kind of resolution, or are we stuck in this endless back and forth?
That's a tough one. The legal situation is still up in the air. With lawsuits against those state bans going through the courts, it's going to take a while to shake out.
And the political battles are just getting more intense. Abortion is a key issue in every election now, from local races all the way up to the presidency.
It's become a defining issue for candidates, for voters, even for judges. And it's become about so much more than just abortion.
What do you mean?
Well, it's a stand-in for all sorts of political and cultural beliefs. It's about bodily autonomy, the role of government, religious freedom versus individual rights. It's a whole tangled web.
So as we dig deeper into this new landscape, we have to think about more than just laws and politics. We have to consider the personal stories, the real human impact of all of this.
Exactly. And that's where things get really complicated, where we see how these policies affect individuals, families, and whole communities.
And that's what we'll be exploring in the final part of our deep dive. The human stories behind all the headlines and the questions we need to ask as we move forward in this uncharted territory. We've come a long way, haven't we? We've talked about the anti-abortion movement's journey from the very beginning all the way to the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And now we're looking at this whole new fragmented landscape. But like you said before, it's the human stories that really make this issue hit home. So where do we even start to unpack the impact of all these changes on people's lives?
It's like we had this big, wide view of the laws and politics, and now we're zooming in on the personal level. We're hearing about women having to travel like crazy distances, hundreds of miles across state lines just to get an abortion, dealing with financial stress, logistical nightmares, the whole nine yards.
It's got to be incredibly tough,
Yeah.
especially for women who are already struggling to make ends meet or live in rural areas without much access to health care.
Right. And then you have families facing these incredibly difficult decisions when they have an unwanted pregnancy or maybe there's something wrong with the fetus. The emotional weight of those situations is just, I mean, it's immense. And having to make those choices in a legal system that's constantly changing, it's just another layer of stress.
It's just an impossible situation. And we can't forget about the healthcare providers either, the ones who stayed in the states with abortion bans. They must be under so much pressure.
Oh, absolutely. It's like they're walking a tightrope, trying to give their patients the best care while dodging all these legal landmines. Some are leaving those states altogether, which just makes the problem worse.
Yeah, it means even fewer options for women who need reproductive health care. Not just abortions, but prenatal care, contraception, all of it.
It's like a domino effect. So much more than just abortion is affected.
Exactly. So as we move forward in this post-Roe America, what are the big questions we should be asking?
Well, the most important one is, what does fair access to reproductive health care even mean now? Because it's not just about abortion. It's about making sure that everyone has access to the full range of reproductive health care services, no matter where they live or how much money they make.
It's about making sure women have the information and support they need to make decisions about their own bodies and their families.
Absolutely. And then there's the question of technology and how it fits into all this. We saw how ultrasound was used to influence the debate years ago, but now we have telemedicine, online pharmacies, even the possibility of getting abortion pills remotely.
It's a whole new world, and both sides are trying to figure out how to use technology to their advantage.
Right. But it also raises concerns about privacy, security, and maybe even more government surveillance. It's tricky.
For sure. And then there's a question that I think often gets left out of the conversation. Where do men fit into all of this?
That's a good point. It's often seen as just a women's issue, but men are involved in reproduction too, and what happens affects them too.
Right, they have a stake in the outcome.
We need to include men in this conversation in a more meaningful way. They have a responsibility in reproductive health decisions, and they can be allies in supporting reproductive rights.
It's about changing the way we talk about this, moving away from this us versus them mentality, and finding a way to work together to address these complicated issues.
Yeah, it takes being open to different perspectives, understanding all the different sides of this, and finding common ground, even when we disagree. It's tough, but it's important.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the main takeaway for our listeners? Is there any reason to be optimistic with all this uncertainty and division?
I think the most important thing to remember is that this story isn't over. Overturning Roe v. Wade was huge, but it's not the ending. It's just a new chapter with new challenges.
It feels like we're in this weird in-between space where anything could happen.
And that's where we have the power. This isn't just a legal or political issue, it's something that affects us all personally. We all have a part to play in shaping the future of reproductive health care in America.
By staying informed, talking about it, and fighting for the policies and values we believe in. This deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about, and I hope it's done the same for our listeners.
It's been great exploring this complex issue with you. And to our listeners, remember, knowledge is power. Understanding the history and the nuances of this debate is so important for creating a better, more fair future for reproductive health care in America.
Couldn't said it better myself. Until next time, everyone, stay curious, stay engaged, and stay informed.